do it. What is going on, everybody? Welcome into what day is it? Tuesday? Tuesday here. Let's do it. Go ahead and change your name to your DJ name just to kind of get us started here. And then do me a favor. By using the little emojis here, there's little reaction buttons, and there's some stock ones down there in Zoom. But you can also customize it and make it whatever you want. So give me an emoji of how you're feeling today. How are you feeling right now? Give us like an emoji here. Let's see what we got in the room. Give me like a clap thing or something. Yes. Millie's feeling good. Dux is clapping there. Grim Sauce with a a baby chick. All right. DJ D, ready to party. B-Stone looking at me sideways. All right, I see you, B-Stone. Gustavo, ready to rock, ready to party. Ooh, okay, we got an alien in the house too. All right, sweet. Well, welcome in, everybody. Just as a reminder, my name is Hapa. Excited to have you here. I think the first kickoff, I was in Japan. I was on a whole other thing. I was on Wednesday when we were doing this. So I got a little confused for a second of whether or not this was on Wednesday or Tuesday. But excited to see all of you here. Just as a reminder, a lot of what we're going to do here in VR today, most of you went through the onboarding probably last week. If you haven't done so already, there's actually lessons that are built into Tribe as well. So there's one-off lessons that are in there. We've got a couple of different lesson packs from different mentors, including myself. This is a great way to just sort of get in and get familiar with some of the controls. However, it's not built in this cumulative way. So they're just sort of placed in there. And it's great to be able to explore. It's also a really great thing to be able to put in front of your kids that you serve, because there doesn't need to be this consecutive, I need to learn this before I learn that in that particular way. And all of those lessons are gamified as well. So some of you probably experienced that as well with like the beat highways is what we call them, where it's coming down like Rock Band and you're really meant to sort of hit the play button or the pause button or the cue button or hot cues at a particular time. And we have an ongoing repository that we're building of a lot of that lesson content. What's also coming shortly, which this actually falls right before this will get released, is we have what we call the 5-day DJ challenge coming, and that is consecutive lessons. So I'm leading that 5-day DJ challenge. I'm leading students through that. It's something that, again, you could position your students for. You could go through that as well, even after these sessions. And you're putting together a 6-song set in that. And we've highlighted all the music that you're using and you're going through it in that way. These 4 sessions that we're having with you all as workshops really are meant to give you more of an overview of DJ education as a whole. It's more of like a sampler platter. So it's meant to give you this overview of DJ education as a whole. We also are working on some actual skills that we're putting together. And then for some of you, like it'd be great for you to put together a little set in this, like using some of the music that's already in Tribe. So as we go through this, like I just want to encourage you to even if you picked up the headset once in between when I see you on Tuesdays, like I think it would be helpful. Otherwise, like there's a lot of time in between, and I know we're all busy and we all have these, other things to do for sure. But I certainly think when you're learning this new skill, and especially for some of you who've identified as, VR is fairly new for you, it takes a while to kind of get used to the muscle memory and the controls and whatnot. So the more time you spend in that, the better. Any questions before we start that you've been dying to ask, or anything from this past week or anything like that? DJ D is good. Okay, cool. All right, sweet. I'm actually going to start with a concept outside of VR first before we jump into VR, because I want to show you this, and I'm going to share my screen here. And if you don't mind, I'm going to use the chat a bit here today at least while we're in Zoom. I'm curious. Anybody in here play any other musical instruments? Like, go ahead and put them in the chat. Like, if you play guitar, drums, if you produce music, if you're a singer. I'm just curious, like, who we got in the room here? Tori says nothing. Awesome. That's perfectly all good. DJ Shu, not the type of music you're playing, but like if you play any other musical instruments, guitar, drums, and bass. Okay, cool. Grim Sauce, sweet. Beats, guitar, bass, awesome. And by the way, this is not a requirement that you then have to have this musical background. But I just want to know who's in the room so I can sort of phrase what I'm about to go over properly here. Okay, cool. All right, so let me jump in. I'm going to share. Jeff, am I able to share my screen? Yeah, right? Yeah. I think I am, actually. Yeah, this is all good. Yeah, I can. Okay, so can you all see my screen? I'm just going to go over this like initial concept, which is BPM, right? Which most of you know BPM, beats per minute, is what that is. As a DJ, why is BPM important for us as a DJ? Anybody? Feel free to just throw it out there. And you could just go for it, DJ D.
Timing.
Okay, wait, timing.
Hold on. Yeah. Hold on. Wait. Yeah, timing is key.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So every song has a BPM value, right? So no matter what the genre is, a song is going to have a BPM value, so long as it has beats, right? So different genres have different BPM ranges. Like a lot of the electronic genres, like let's say house music, for the most part, house music is between 120 beats per minute to like 130 beats per minute for the most part. You take a genre like hip hop though, which is a lot wider. Like you could have hip hop songs that are 60 beats per minute, and then you could also have hip hop songs that are 110 beats per minute or 95 beats per minute, all over the place. So BPM does not necessarily need to stay stuck to a genre, but BPM is super important for us as DJs because it'll give me an indication of what could mix with what. So I have a general rule of thumb here, which is plus or minus 4, which would mean then that if I have a song that's 100 beats per minute, I'm looking for a song within the range of 96 to 104. And this is sort of a general rule of thumb. So if I had a song that was 100 and, if I had a song that was 110, then I'd be looking for 106 to 114, right? And so really that becomes our first filter of what could mix with what. So when I'm asking you to say, like, if you gave me a playlist and you were like, hey, we're throwing a party, here's the playlist, the first thing I would do is I would take that playlist and get it into my DJ software. And I would analyze the BPM of all of those songs. And I would start to look at your playlist that you gave me, not necessarily in the order you gave it to me in, but I would start to sort that by BPM to try to figure out what could mix with what. And BPM is super important when it comes to mixing songs, because a big part of what we're trying to achieve, and let me actually, sorry, I don't want to give you guys a headache. Hold on, let me get a clear spot here. All right, so what we're trying to achieve is, let's say I've got, who is this? Let's see. MPLS House. Do me a favor, man. Like, just name an artist, any artist. Doesn't matter what it is. Sorry, you're muted. You able to unmute? See, did we lose you? Oh, there we go.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, gotcha.
Grand Poobah.
Oh, okay. So we can say Grand Poobah. All right. So let's say this song was 100 beats per minute. It's Grand Poobah song. It's 100 beats per minute. And then DJ Goose, give me another artist that's completely different from Grand Puba.
Not sure if I'm familiar with that artist, but Gnarls Barkley.
Gnarls Barkley. Okay, yeah. Okay, so here's the thing. All right, so let's say we've got Gnarls Barkley. So this is Gnarls Barkley. Gnarls Barkley. And let's say we had a song that from Gnarls Barkley that was 103 beats per minute. So these two could mix, right? These two could mix. And essentially what we're doing is we are trying to find where the point of intersection is between these songs. So the Grand Puba song is going to play, and let's say that's playing on the left side. The Grand Puba song is going to play, and it's playing at 100 beats per minute on the left side. And then I'm like, okay, I'm going to bring in this Gnarls Barkley song. I'm going to mix this Gnarls Barkley song in. Now, unlike Spotify or Apple Music or any other place where you might listen to music, we don't have to just listen to one song and then the next song and then the next song. Like, we can play multiple songs at the same time. Like, that really is what the DJ mixer is for. And so what we really want to do is we want to be able to find this point of intersection. And at some point in time, right here, these two are going to be playing together. They're actually going to be playing together at the same time. They're going to be mixing together. And we're going to hear this. And some of you, can, go back and recall this when you're at a party and you can sort of hear, it's like, oh, he's going to play that Gnarls Barkley. Like, I hear it coming. You hear it coming underneath it. So this Grand Puba song is playing, and it's going to play all the way until we're out. This one is going to be sort of fading up during this time. And so you're hearing two at the same time. Now, this also, there's something I need to do as well, because the Gnarls Barkley song is 103 and the Grand Puba song is 100. So if I were to play these two at the same time, just as is, it would sound like shoes in the dryer. It would sound crazy because the beats would be all over the place, right? Because they're not lined up. So there's a function that we have when it comes to DJing, and this used to be something that we had to do manually. But now there are functions for us to be able to do this by using the computing that's within DJ software, which essentially that's what Tribe is. Tribe is DJ software, which is something called beat sync. So if I beat sync, it literally is a button. And I hit this button and I beat sync the Gnarls Barkley. So I hit beat sync on the Gnarls Barkley and it changes the 103 to 100 automatically. As soon as I hit the button, it changes it to 100. So now they're the exact same beats per minute, which then means if I bring the songs in at the same time, like if I bring this song in, like let's say this is the chorus. Let's say this is the intro. If I bring the intro in at the same time as the chorus and I line up the downbeats or the one, essentially, like the and there, right? And I line that up, these two should play together nicely. And the beats would be matched up. And then when the chorus is done, maybe my intro is done and now I'm into the next song. Now there's a little bit more that goes into this in terms of like what I need to figure out. So let me kind of zoom in here a little bit more. Essentially, and this is not necessarily what we're going to do today full on. Like we're going to do the first part of this, which is beat syncing. The second part of this, which is a little bit more complex, which I just want to introduce right now, is in order to really make this mix sound good, I need to figure out how long is the chorus, right? So like, what is the length of the chorus? So let's just say this was 8 bars. And I'll talk about what bars are in just a minute. Some of you are probably like, what the heck is a bar? And let's say the intro was also 8 bars. Well, now this makes it a no-brainer, because if I start the chorus, or as the chorus is coming, I start the intro, and the intro is 8 bars, and the chorus is 8 bars, they'll play together for 8 bars. Then when the chorus is done, I'm now no longer playing this song, and now I'm into this song. And this means that the songs are properly phrased in this way. So I'm not just randomly changing songs, and I'm not just also randomly putting songs in whatever order I feel like. In this way of what I'm showing you right now is, number one, just to kind of recap, I'm really considering BPM. So what is the BPM of the song that I'm playing? Therefore, I'm going to think plus or minus 4 to try to find the next song that I'm going to play. So I'm going to that will determine what I'm going to play next. Then the next step is I've got to make sure I beat sync them. And then the step after that is I got to figure out where am I going to get in and where am I getting out of each song. So let me put that here. So number 1 is what is the BPM? And again, we're thinking plus or minus 4. Number 2 is we're going to beat sync. Number 3, which I've got to figure out, is how do I get in and how do I get out? Like this is the big secret to DJing overall. Like it's as simple as this. It's like I've got to figure out what's the BPM, then I've got to figure out beat syncing them, then I got to figure out how to get in and out. Now, hopefully the goal here is that, oh wait, that's too big. All right, so hopefully the goal here is that I'm doing this ahead of time, meaning I've already figured out how long is the intro, how long is the chorus. And let me try something. Actually, I'm gonna try something. I'm gonna do this with Silence Them All, especially because it's in your name here. So Silence Them All. What I want you to do, man, is I want you to tell everybody what you did yesterday from the minute you woke up to the minute you went to bed. Don't stop until I raise my hand, all right? Just keep talking. Ready? Go.
Start my day out meditating. Then I went to do.
So yesterday when I woke up, there was a giraffe in my living room, and I had no idea what that giraffe was doing in my living room. And it was just like, hey, what do you want to do today? You want to mix? You want to like paint the house? What do you want to do today? All right, Jeff. All right, man. I think you get the point, right? Like we cannot have vocals over vocals. We cannot have vocals over vocals. It sounds crazy, right? And especially because I'm trying to mix 2 songs together. So if I'm trying to mix 2 songs together, this is different than playing in a band. In a band, the singer just stops singing, and then you're good. Now you have instrumental. With a DJ set, I'm working with tracks that are already made. So the tracks are already made. Like I can't actually, well, technically now there are some tools to be able to isolate vocals and isolate different instruments now, technically. We don't have that inside of Tribe quite yet. But for what it's worth, I've got to be able to figure out where in the track is there an instrumental section potentially. Now, please make sure you hear what I'm saying. Both don't have to be instrumental. So when I look at this example of Grand Puba and Gnarls Barkley, they both don't have to be instrumental. It's probably likely that the chorus has vocals on it. So what I'm looking them for with the intro is hopefully the intro is instrumental. Because if the intro also has vocals, or if this song doesn't have an intro, it's going to make it pretty challenging to be able to do what I've just outlined here, to be able to mix them in this way. Now, does that mean that you can't play the songs? Absolutely not. There's another technique. So the technique I'm showing you right now is, we refer to this as mixing. Sometimes this is called blending as well, where you're like blending the songs together because there's this period in time in which this is happening. There's other techniques though as a DJ where you're dropping songs in, where the transition is less about the songs living together and blending together, and it's almost like you're going from one to the next. And it's this like hard cut from like, here I am in this song, here I am in that song. If any of you have ever listened to Kid Capri DJ, he hardly ever mixes and blends. Kid Capri just cuts songs over. And there's a lot of DJs that will do that as a technique of just like kind of surprising you. It's like a surprise attack. You're just kind of getting hit with this next song. Now, it's still important in that case to understand the phrasing, and there's definitely technique that goes into that. One of the other techniques that usually gets thrown in there with this sort of cutting, this hard style of cutting, is a scratch. So like is using the scratch to be able to anticipate the transition. So the scratch is almost like, hey, something's about to happen, and boom, hit you with the new one. And something's about to happen, and boom, hit you with the next one. Like, that's a different technique than what I'm showing you right now. This technique of blending or mixing. You'll see this very common for when it comes to a lot of electronic music. It's this style of blending. In fact, one of the biggest compliments you could get if you were mixing electronic music would be that, like, it all sounds like one song. It's like, man, played for 20 minutes and it all sounded like one song. Yet it wasn't. It was like 4 different songs, 6 different songs, but it was blended so well together that you almost couldn't find the seams between them. Now, obviously, that could also be a derogatory statement too, where it was like, oh my gosh, it just all sounded like one song. But, like, you know, this technique of being able to transition between songs is the most common. So if I go and DJ for 4 hours, the majority of my transitions are going to be what I just highlighted for you here. And I might play 250 songs, and the majority of the transitions are going to be this right here of what I'm showing you. So this isn't necessarily like, oh, this is a beginner transition. This is the fundamentals of DJing, is this part. DJ Goose, what you got? Got a question?
Yeah, I had a question. In this blending, is there like an optimal time frame that it should be happening at, or is it depends on DJs? Are some longer, shorter?
Great question. Great question. So the length of this blend of this time frame, like right here, I said this would be like, let's say this is 8 bars. The length is going to actually be determined by the songs that you're playing. So over time, like, a way to think about DJing is most musicianship is composition based, right? So some of you mentioned you play the guitar, bass, keys, drums. Like, this is composition. Like, there's no music if you're not actually playing those notes, and you're making those notes happen. Like, you're playing those notes, you're composing in that way, or you're following a composition. With DJing, it's the opposite. It's decomposition and recomposition. So we're taking songs that are already built and we're breaking them down. So let me give you an analogy. This is a pretty good analogy, I think. And you'll hear me talk about all sorts of analogies through our time together. You'll be sick of them by the time we're done. But this is a good one. Anybody in here ever played with Legos? It's okay. You can admit it. Some of us still play with Legos. I'm about it. All right. So let's say I gave you 2 Lego structures that were already built. Like, one was the Statue of Liberty and one was, I don't know, a Sphinx or whatever, like some other, like an Egyptian Sphinx, right? I gave you these 2 structures. They were already built. And I said, here you go. These are 2 structures. And you were like, this is cool, but I want to make something new. What would you need to do to be able to make something new out of these? What would the first thing you need to do? You'd have to break them apart, right? You'd have to break them apart, and you'd start to break this apart. And maybe you're like, okay, well, I really like the torch of the Statue of Liberty, so I'm going to leave that intact. And then I really like the head of the Sphinx here. So, okay, I'm definitely going to use those pieces, but I'm going to take apart the body part of the Sphinx, and I'm going to take apart this. Like, you've got to be able to break this into smaller pieces to be able to figure out where they can intersect. So a big part of our job as DJs is breaking down the music and thinking through the music, not necessarily in terms of notes, but in terms of structure. So this is also why sometimes, like, people will say, like, in my opinion, some of the best producers either started as DJs or are DJs. Well, it just goes hand in hand. Like, you're focused on the structure of the music and the phrasing of that music, right? The arrangement. So usually what I will do, I'm preparing for a gig. I'll go and download some new tracks. I'll take those tracks. What's the first thing you think I do when I got those tracks? BPM, right? I got to figure out the BPM. So first, I throw them into the software, allow the software to kind of figure out using the algorithm what the BPM is. And usually the software is about 90% right. So I'm like, okay, that's good enough for me to move to the next phase. Then the next phase is, yes, beat syncing when I'm playing live. But before that, I need to figure out how I'm going to get in and out. So then I'll take a song, like I'll take this Grand Poobah song and I'll listen to it and I'll start to figure out what is the structure? What is the structure here? Okay, it's got an 8-bar intro. The first chorus is 4 bars. The second chorus is 8 bars. Okay, cool. I got an idea of like what the song is. And then now that I know that, I'll mark these off. Like I'll mark the actual tracks off and I'll show you how we can do that. We use something called hot cues to be able to set marks that essentially serve as bookmarks to allow us to know like, all right, this is 8 bars, this is 4 bars, this is 16 bars. And then that way I already know the track and now I know how it's built out and then I can actually mix them together. Does that make sense? Just for the sake of doing this here, I want to see if I can pull this up real fast. I want to just show you something before I get into Init in Tribe. I'm going to try to do this on the desktop first. Let me stop sharing for a second. DJ Goose, did you have another question? Oh, okay, cool. Anybody else have any other questions before we move on here? Okay, so I just want to show you.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, go for it. Go for it.
In transitions, well, I know we're talking about blending, but transitions also using effects. Echo is a big one that I use a lot.
Yep.
So,
yep.
Yeah, just want to
Yeah,
mention
and
that.
so there are, yeah, exactly. So there's definitely not one way to transition between songs at all. However, the key to a good transition is really understanding the music, like, and understanding the phrasing of that. Because I can put an echo on anything, but if it's at the wrong timing, like let's say this is before it gets to the best part of the song, right? Before we get to the chorus where everybody knows it and is going to sing along. And I do some cool, like little spin back and echo on it, but I didn't pay attention to like where the song is going, then that's a bad mix. You know, you're going to get one of those like, boo, oh, sucks, right? Like you got to know your music. And that is the key. The key to all of this is like really knowing the music. And yeah, this is also why being a DJ goes super deep, you know, like, because the music there's no end to it. You know, there's so much music. I mean, there's constantly new music coming out. You know, you could go backwards. There's music from the past. There's music from now. Like there's music in the future. And you're using all of this in what it is that you do. It's a bit different than if you were, let's say, you played in a Journey cover band and you played guitar in a Journey cover band. At some point in time, you know all the tracks. You know all the music. You got it down. Like at some point, you will reach a level of supreme mastery, and then that's it. And unless you move on to a different band or you decide to play different tracks, different music, like that's it. You've hit the ceiling. When it comes to DJing, there is no ceiling on that because you're constantly bringing in new tracks, new songs, new ways of doing things. All right, I'm going to show you something real fast here, and this is using a program called Serato, and I'm just using this on my laptop or on my desktop right now because I want to show you this, and then I'll show you how we translate this into Tribe. So I've got 2 tracks here. One is this Unforgettable song. You'll notice that the BPM here, can somebody tell me what you think the BPM is of this Unforgettable? I know you've never seen this software before, but what do you think the BPM is of this software? I mean, of this Unforgettable track?
102.
Absolutely. DJ Shu, you nailed it. 102. So how did you figure that out?
I do know Serato. Yeah.
Okay.
It's
All right.
up at the top. Yeah.
All right. So right here is where the BPM is, where the current BPM is. You'll also notice that the BPM is here in the browser area as well, which is telling me what this is. Now, this weekend, so actually, let me use a different song than this one. Let's use this track. These are all somewhat interchangeable. So this song is 104. So are these within plus or minus 4? Yes, check. These will work. So these will work together. Now, what you'll notice is what I was mentioning to you kind of briefly was these hot cues. So I've got these hot cues that are set up at different points. So this is the intro. You'll notice that this is instrumental. So I've got these different points that are here. You'll notice here, this is a drop. You also can see the playhead up here at the top, which is the reason why I'm showing you this here as well, is because when we go into Tribe, you'll see very, very similar configurations. Like you'll see where you'll see the track on the player, you'll see the playhead there. You'll be able to see the different hot cues. There's a drop here, there's another drop here, and there's another drop here. And there's an instrumental section. Now, you'll notice that these colors are like red, yellow, red, 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 red. These colors denote length for me, and I set these hot cues ahead of time. So red means 8 bars in my system. So what I was telling you before about this, like if I start the intro at the same time as the chorus, these should line up. So let me show you this. So like, let's say I'm here, we're getting close to where this drop is. Then I'm gonna bring in Stranger. So I'm just gonna do this off the desktop right now. So take a look at this. This is essentially what I drew for you earlier in practice.
Looking like Beyonce dressed in kabaya. She don't slow down and she won't stay quiet. Called her up, this you.
So that is the transition that I was talking about. So for 8 bars, these 2 tracks were playing together. I figured out when I can get out, when I can get in. I had 8 and 8. And essentially by using the hot cues, this made it a no-brainer. I just lined up red and red. And then of course I beat synced. And if I beat sync, then they should all match up and they should work together, right? So these should actually play together in that particular way. So a big part of this is like figuring out how we actually put the tracks together and how we can mix them together. I wanted to give you this overview so you can understand like what the goal is and what we're trying to achieve, like when we're trying to mix these tracks together. So what I now want to do is I want to be able to switch us over to VR. But well, and do we have any questions before we switch over to VR?
Yeah, sorry. So
Yeah,
maybe
no, don't be sorry.
thinking too much into it, but let's say Unforgettable was 105, Strangers at 100. Can you pick and choose which one it's going to match to? Say like, can you gradually slow down to 100?
Yes. Yes, you could. But that if they were 105 and 100, I would say that they're just outside of the reach.
Yeah. No, just an example for sake of numbers of it. Like you can slow it down to reach BPM of your second song. So even if it's
technically
103,
you can slow anything down. Like there's another song that's 120 here, and I could technically load this song here, and I could beat sync the 120 to the 102, and it would bring this song down to 102. The difference is that it would drastically change the vibe of the track, right? Because the track was meant to be played at 120, and depending on like the songs that you're playing, you know, like let's say you're playing a Michael Jackson song, you're mixing that into a Prince song. Well, if those were too far apart, like Michael's going to sound like a baritone because you've dropped it down so low, or, you know, what have you. Like the music is just going to sound off in that way. It'll sound too distorted. So, you know, the technology actually allows us to beat sync almost anything. But does it sound good is the question. But another part of what you were asking me is, can you choose which one you're syncing to? Yes. The one that you're actually hitting beat sync on is what's going to become essentially the other one will become the master. So like if I hit beat sync on the right deck, it will sync it to whatever the left deck was at.
Got it. Yeah, that makes sense.
So and then technically, like as you're playing the song, like as I'm playing this song, I could choose.
Ship the whole crew to the cruise ship. Doing you don't even see in movies. Ride with me, boss. I got
So I could choose to even speed up the track as it's playing or slow it down as it's playing. I really kind of want to try to avoid that as much as possible, because the song that's playing outside out of the speaker, like that's the song that people are dancing to and moving to. You don't want to be throwing off your audience so much, right? So there is a technique in which that would be helpful, right? Like if I were trying to transition from, let's say, 100 beats per minute up to 120 beats per minute, and maybe I wanted to do that, like that was intentional, like I was really trying to speed it up in that way, I could. And there's some other techniques to be able to do that, but yeah, hopefully that helps out.
Yeah, no, definitely appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure. Any other questions before we jump into VR?
Yeah, well, I had another question too,
Yeah.
DJ.
Yeah.
So is this the reason why DJs will have like a earphone here, like they're hearing the syncing right before executing it?
Yes. Oh, that's such a good question. That's such a good question. So yes, actually the headphones are a pretty crucial part of the overall kit of a DJ. And what I'm usually listening to is the next song, right? Like I'm a step ahead. So I'm able to audition what I think would maybe be a good mix before it actually gets mixed in. And that allows me to stay a step ahead, at least, a step ahead. I'm also like, there was a something I posted on social media recently. It was a DJ friend who was like being interviewed on a podcast or whatever, and was saying how like there is so much going on when you're DJing. Like you're thinking about so many different things. Like you're trying to, is the crowd liking what I'm doing? What am I going to play next? What am I going to play 3 songs from now? What am I going to play half an hour from now? Like, is my mixer reset? Is like all this happening? Like, how are these people receiving what I'm doing? Like, there's just so much going on. DJing an hour set like feels like a 8-hour workday, for a lot of people, because there's just so much stimulation that you're just trying to take in. But back to the headphones, like that is absolutely the advantage that we're going to have, is being able to hear this ahead of time so that we're not blinded by it. You'll also notice when I did this mix, and this is kind of like just muscle memory for me, I'm going to do this real quick one more time, which is, you'll notice what I did is I turned the volume down on the right deck first. So this is my volume control. I turned the volume down on the right deck so that these two could come in first. And if for some reason it was off a little bit, I could make an adjustment, and then I brought the volume up. So here, let me show you one more time.
Head with her episode. She want the last name with the ring on it. Cause I pulled out $1 million cash, told her plank on it.
And then I beat it. Yeah, I forgot to beat it. Because I had the volume down, nobody knew it.
Looking like Beyonce dressed in kabaya. She don't slow down.
Right. So by having the volume down, that gave me the opportunity to make that adjustment. And I would normally do that adjustment in my headphone, like using my headphones. And where this gets incredibly more crucial is when you're taking up the challenge of manually beat matching. So if you're manually beat matching, you absolutely need the headphones to be able to manually play the song and like nudge it ahead, pull it back to try to get the beats matched up. And this is the way that we DJ'd before there was a beat sync button. And it's the way that many DJs still play today, is without a beat sync button. What I like to teach though is I like to teach the beat sync button first, because it's like training wheels. I used to not get in. I used to be like, the beat sync is the devil. Don't use the beat sync. But it's not. It's like, this is a tool that you can use. And much like training wheels, it allows you to focus on like the structure of the music and when to get in and out, versus worried about this sounding like crap, like shoes in a dryer type of a thing, right? So what you really want to do is at some point in time, probably, for most DJs, you start with beat sync, and much like with training wheels, at some point in time, maybe you decide, I want to take the training wheels off. Like, I'm not going to just ride around in training wheels forever. I'm ready for the challenge. I've built up some confidence. Like, now I'm ready to take the training wheels off. So yeah. Great questions though, like with the headphones. Any other questions? I'm here for it all, by the way. Like, these are great questions, and what I'm covering is quite a lot.
I have a quick one.
Yeah.
What percent of DJs you think have their whole set list kind of set,
Great question.
you know what I'm saying, before they play, as
Yeah.
opposed to trying to read what the crowd may want or whatever, and in the moment be picking songs?
Yeah. That's a great question too. So I think a lot of times when you're first starting out as a DJ, you are doing this work, like I'm saying, you're figuring out the BPM, you're figuring out how to get in and out of songs, and then you're finding some combinations of songs that like work, and you're like, ooh, these really work together. I'm gonna play A, then B, then C, then D. Okay, great. This sounds good, this works. And I think that that's usually the initial step for most DJs. Most DJs that I teach, like that's the initial step. You're building out a set in the same way as you would as a musician, right? Like you're building a set based on the songs that you know how to play. And then over time, like the goal, in my opinion, is that you become so present and you have enough of a library where you're making these decisions on the fly, and you're really able to mix and match to be able to cater to what's actually happening in the room. Because while yes, you could say, I'm going to play A, then B, then C, then D, what happens if they don't like A? And you're like, wait, hold on. I'm not going to change it up yet because I don't know how to change it up yet. Like it needs to wait till I get to this point, then I'm going to switch it up. And then what happens if they don't like B? Now you're just like, oh my gosh, I don't know what else to do. Like I just need to play C because that's all I know how to do. I've actually seen some really like well-known DJs that I've played alongside with. There's some pretty big name DJs that I've seen like crash and burn because they relied on a particular set and the room wasn't that. And they weren't able to, to improvise, to pivot. And so a lot of this, we talk about, I in particular talk about how DJing is this incredible skill that one learns that has so many transferable skills when it comes to other aspects of life. Like, and in particular, one of the biggest things is like learning to pivot, because as a DJ, you're constantly pivoting. Like you could have a plan, but you better be able to pivot from that plan. Otherwise, it's going to be a long night. It's going to be a long night and you're in for it, and you're probably not going to get that. The goal of the gig is not to do the gig well. The goal of the gig is the next gig, right? So if you just are like, nope, I'm sticking to my playlist, that's what it is, F all y'all, like this is what I'm doing tonight, then it's not going to end up well. And chances are you're not going to, like, these people aren't going to have a great time, and people are probably going to be like, I don't know if we should have DJ TJ back. I don't know. Just kidding, DJ TJ, you're going to kill it. All right. So does that help everybody? Give you some perspective there? By the way, please keep asking the questions, because that's exactly what we're here for. And in fact, actually, if that means that we spend a little less time in the VR set and being able to do what you need to do, that's fine, because getting you this information is going to be helpful for when you jump in the headset as well. So what I would say here is, like, when you get into the headset, there's a couple of things, and we've got about another 10 minutes here, a little more than 10 minutes. But in the headset, we have a place where you're going to be able to find music. And actually, let me do this. Let me see if I can do this on this computer here. Let me see if I can share my screen. When you first go into Tribe, after you go through the onboarding and you get into free play, which that's where you guys will be, is in free play. When you're in free play, you'll be able to bring up music. Now, yes, you can bring in your own music into Tribe. That's a little bit more complex to be able to do that, depending on your setup that you have. Most of you are going to just be in a standalone headset, which means that in order to do that, you've got to sync your music to the actual device, and there's a little bit more to that. Happy to help you guys with it, and we can get into that next week. But what I'd encourage you to do this week is to just use some of the demo tracks that are in Tribe. So there's a bunch of music that's already there. There's music packs that are here, and what I want you to do is to bring the music in, And then what should you do first? What should you be looking for first? I think TJ said BPM. Yeah. Yeah, we're trying to figure out the BPM first, right? So when you load the track, it'll actually show you the BPM. Let me actually load up real quick here. Give me 1 sec. And I'm going to try to share my screen. Jeff, I'm just going to join from another device here as well.
Okay.
And let me stop sharing this one. By the way, Serato is a free software as well that you can download. So what I just showed you, like if you just wanted to mess with it on the desktop, is also a free download. Let's see, and let me pull this here. Oh, I did see a question from Shu here in the chat that could you split the difference? Yeah, you definitely could. Okay, cool. So join. All right, I'm joining on this one. I'm going to mute me on this side. All right, you should be able to hear me on this side now. Okay, and let me get into sharing. Give me 1 sec. And by the way, if you guys do need any additional help throughout the week, you can reach out to me, you can reach out to Lee. We're here to help you guys out and be able to help you get onboarded. I know Lee mentioned that some of you, he was helping some of you get onboarded earlier this week. Let me share. This should work. Can you all see my screen here?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, cool. All right. So this is way too much here, what's in front of me. And actually, let me give you the overhead. I'm going to switch. Actually, let me give you POV first. So in this area in front of me, I've got what we call a mini menu, and then we've got this larger menu. So within the mini menu, I can click on the music tab and switch up the music. Let me first change the equipment back. So I'm going to go to starter decks, which most people end up starting on. And so with the starter decks, we've got one deck here, which this would be our right deck. We've got our mixer in the middle, and then our left deck. And so we've got volume for the right deck, volume for the left deck. You were asking about the headphones. We can actually enable our virtual headphones. If I put my hand up to my ear and then I click, you'll notice that this now turned yellow, which means that now that's activated for my virtual headphone queue, which is great. And then what I could do is I could click on this, and that's going to now be me listening to this side. So if I've set up this way, I'm going to be able to hear this without you being able to hear it coming out of the master, which is great. So that's a way to headphone queue. To start with though, I wouldn't worry about that so much. Don't worry about that so much. I mean, it can just come out of the main area. Now, what you also might see is as I'm hovering over this, you'll probably see I've got beat sync up there. I've also got a beat sync here, right? So beat sync on my right deck, beat sync on my left deck. And then let's not worry about the EQ quite yet. So for those of you who are more experienced, like of course, here's our EQ. Here's also a filter knob. Like we can get into all that later. But for right now, like really it's about beat sync. This also right here is our tempo adjust. So this is what's going to speed up and slow down the song. So let me just go ahead and load up some music real quick. So I'm going to click on the music icon. And what you can go is you can go into track packs. And inside the track packs, there'll be Desti. There's these different, this is listed by producer who's provided some tracks inside a Tribe. So if I were to, let's say, click on Cryo Man, for example, these two are good. Like Biggie Says, I'm gonna load that on the left deck. That's 125. And then Let's Play House, I already know is also 125. So once I load it up, I'll be able to see it. And you can also analyze these tracks. So if I click on Analyze, I can say Analyze tracks in Cryoman, yes. And then it's going to analyze and then tell me the BPM. See how it gave me, they're basically all 125, these tracks. So they're all fairly interchangeable. So by clicking on that Analyze button, that allowed for me to then see the BPM of what can be mixed. So like if I were to go out to Dusty and I click on Analyze, it'll process, and then there we go, it starts to fill in. So you'll see all of these can sort of be mixed together too. 125, 128, 125, 125. These can all be mixed together as well. So based on that, you'll notice one of the things that I don't have is I don't have those actual hot cues that I spoke about. So in this case, we do have to kind of figure out how am I going to get in and out of these different songs. In the meantime, though, one of the things that you'll also see with the waveform is you can see that the waveform looks different. Like the thicker part of the waveform here, that darker blue, that is where there's more music. And that, I'm guessing, is the drop. You'll also see above the zoomed out waveform, we've got the zoomed in waveform. So if I go ahead and hit play on this track, giving me the BPM. If I change the tempo, it's changing the speed. Now, I can also hover over it where it's blue, and then I click the A button on my controller and it brings it right back to the center. So all I'm doing is I'm hitting the A on my actual hand controller to be able to reset that. So again, that blue sphere is going to be my contact point for everything. And when I'm actually on it, it turns blue. So sometimes people will be here and they're like, it's not moving. Why isn't it moving? And that's because the blue sphere isn't all the way down on that space. So now I am, and now I can move it. Now, as soon as I grab it with the trigger, it's not blue anymore. So it's just blue when I first make contact with it, and then I hold it, and then I can move it. Now we're not really going to use much on the tempo. I just wanted to show you that, but the same is true of the volume fader. And so.
We had the hat to match. We Jacks. You know Biggie said we had the hat to match. We call them lumberjacks. You know Biggie said we had the hat to match. We call them lumberjacks. You know Biggie said we had the hat to match. We call them lumberjacks. You know Biggie said. 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 Biggie said he had the hat to match.
I'm playing. You notice they're a little bit off. The reason why I can see they're a little bit off is I'm looking at that blue
Hat to
screen.
match.
They're a little bit off there. It's also because I didn't move them. So I'm gonna go ahead and hit move it. Notice that they snapped into place.
Hat to match.
Together. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and drop.
Let's play house.
So this is all these tracks. All I really wanted to do is be able to kind of get familiar with being able to bring a song on the decks, be able to hit beat sync on the other one. Don't worry so much about the vocals over vocals part. Like that's not a huge concern at this moment in time. Like eventually, yes, we want to be able to figure out the songs that we can make sure that they fit together better. But for right now, that's not a huge concern. Like I'm really more about wanting you to get the rhythm down of being able to beat sync them together, be able to mix them in, being able to have them play together, and then be able to just get more comfortable with what this is, finding the BPM of songs and putting some stuff together. So don't worry so much about the vocals over vocals. If you happen to find different sections, though, one of the things that you can use is the hot cues. So let me actually show you this again on the overhead. So a way that, like right now, I'm back at the very beginning of the track on this one. I can set a hot cue. So if I go ahead and click it, it's going to now set a hot cue at the very beginning of this track, which means and I can jump to it. So I can also set a hot cue, like let's say where the beginning of the drop is. So I can also use my, let me actually use my hand here, and I'm going to scrub the waveform, make it closer to maybe where the drop is.
Biggie said he had the hat to match.
So I'm gonna pull it right there, and that's where I want to set another hot cue. So I set another hot cue right here. So this is our drop. And so this is how I can use hot cues, and I can set them up. You'll notice that they are all the same color right now. I can change them. I can make them different colors using another software, but right now they're all going to be one color essentially that are here, especially in our simplified decks. And this is a really great way to sort of get started. Any questions that you guys have?
I just have a couple logistical things.
Sure.
So I just got an email that the free trial is about to expire. So does that automatically switch over to the subscription?
There should be, so I'm gonna have you email Lee, because Lee should have been able to unlock your guys' accounts. And so you should have access to your account after that trial is up.
Okay.
Yeah, so just make sure that like he's got your right account info, and Lee's got the ability to, he holds the keys.
Okay.
Essentially, yeah.
Okay. I'll send that to him. And then I guess, so once this training is over, do we just keep the one license, or how does that work?
Yeah, so we'll work that out, and we'll be able to give you guys some answers on that, of how that works out. Like, let me get with Silence Them All and Matt to figure out how we deploy these codes and whatnot.
Okay, cool. All right, thanks.
Yeah, great questions though. Anything else?
Yeah, can someone send Lee's email in the chat?
Yeah, it's just Lee at tribexr.com.
Oh, okay.
I'm on the second page.
Yeah.
The last page.
And it's LEE at tribexr.com.
So I can do it. You know.
Any other questions you guys have?
Yeah, I had a question about what you were saying about the training wheels.
Yeah.
When you let go of the training wheels of the beat sync, does that just mean it's a matter of like finding tracks that are exactly matched up with each other, or what did that mean?
No, that means that you are really focused on training your ears to then be able to manually adjust this tempo fader to be able to match with what the tracks are that you're playing. And there's now different levels of like what I would like to call manually beat matching, which is like, I think the highest level of manual beat matching is you could do this blindfolded. And I actually have a video on YouTube of me manually beat matching blindfolded. And I think like that's the highest level of manual beat matching. And then there's like some subsequent levels in between that and then using beat sync. So like there's some DJs that claim to be manual beat matching, but really what they're doing is they're taking the tempo, they're looking at what the BPM is, and they're adjusting the tempo to match what the BPM is already, which like, to me, that's like, you might as well just hit beat sync in that case, because you're already doing that. And then there still is this art though of being able to bring the song in on time And then if it's coming in and it's a little bit off, that you'd be speeding up or slowing down. And there's other aspects in which manual beat matching is, it's not just oh, this is a good challenge, but there are some real practical times where, you need to manually beat match. For instance, if I were mixing, James Brown into Aretha Franklin, and both of them had live drums in them, they weren't built on a click. They weren't built on a quantized drum. So therefore beat sync isn't going to really help. The drummer, as great of a drummer as Clyde Stubblefield was, like, he wasn't a machine. He wasn't a robot, so there's going to be some drifting that happens, and you won't notice it as a listener. But if you're trying to hit beat match on those two songs, you'll notice that it'll sound off even though you've hit beat sync, because the drummers are human. And so in those cases, like, you would then be essentially riding the track and manually, like, keeping it on beat using your ears and your hands. And really it's less about the eyes, which is also a bit different in VR, right? Because I still sort of need my eyes in VR. It's so eye dependent in VR. So it is a difficult sort of thing to say, oh, you're going to manually beat match inside a tribe, not at the highest level. Because if I'm completely blind, I lose where I'm actually at in VR, because it's based on spatial that way too, right? So I could do it in real life, but not necessarily in VR.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Any other questions? Okay, awesome. I'm going to give you just a little something to, again, as like a refresher, as a reminder, something to be able to work on this week. Just find 2 tracks inside of, or you could go more, but find some tracks inside of the music area. So again, if I go back to music, music pulls up this menu, and you're going to go to track packs. If you go to my tracks, there's really not going to be anything in it yet because you haven't loaded your music in here. We also have the ability to load it in streaming, but you'll notice that, like, the only streaming service that really works with DJ services, like SoundCloud doesn't, nor does Apple Music. And that's like an API thing on that side, unfortunately. But SoundCloud Go will plug into Tribe. In the meantime, though, I don't want you to worry so much about that. There is ways to get your own music in here. There's several different ways, including being able to connect to Dropbox. But what I'd first love for you to do is just pick something from one of the track packs. And I recognize that some of this music may not be of interest to you. Like, it's not like your cup of tea necessarily, which is, I would almost urge you to, like, continue to just push forward and see if you can at least beat sync the songs, even with music that you're not super into, because it's all, the ease of use is here, that it's already in here. And then next week, I'll show you how we can get some of your music into Tribe. I'm actually going to send over probably a pack of music also to you guys that can be used. I've got, I put together these clean tracks, these clean track packs for schools and some of the educators that I work with. So, and these are all tracks that have extended intros, meaning they have instrumental intros, which make them easier to mix. And I can send over a pack that you guys can use. And I can send that over to you through email, and then I'll show you how to actually upload it in. And then that way there's like some music that's maybe a bit more appropriate for maybe some of the kids that you're trying to serve as well. That's definitely an issue sometimes. Cool. All right. Well, awesome. Thank you all for joining. Thank you for the great questions and for just being open to all of this. And yeah, I look forward to next week's session as well. I'll also send through some different slides of what I just kind of showed today as well. I'll send those through on email to you, Jeff, and then maybe you can distribute those to this group as well. Just so you guys can see some of what I had outlined with that. Sort of, this is the overall phrasing that we're trying to achieve and what I drew out today. I'll send those over as screenshots.
Yeah, sounds good.
I think you have the recording of this too, right?
Yeah, that's just not to say that.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Perfect. Perfect.
All right. Thanks a lot, everyone.
All right, everybody. Thank you. Have a great day. See you
Appreciate
soon.
Take care.